It's Around the House. When it comes to remodeling and renovating your home, there is a lot to know, but we've got you covered. This is Around the House.
Welcome to the Around the House show, the next generation of home improvement. Thanks for joining me today. This is our midweek update. This is that update that we do in the middle of the week each week where we talk about stuff that's not going to make it into next weekend's show. Today, we've got a big talk here that we're going to discuss, and this is an important one, and it's about affordable housing. And I really want to hit some of these points here to help you understand what's going to help and what's not out there, because I've been working with this subject for decades, and it's something that I think that we really need to explore to open up the conversation so we can do this right. See, we have a huge, as you probably all know, affordable housing issue out there. And there's multiple facets to this. Right now, one of them, interest rates. What causes that? Government overspending. That's not a political thing. That is an economical fact that if the government prints too much money, guess what? The interest rates go up because they're out of control. So until we deal with that, we're not going to see the interest rates go down. Now, we're going to see the economy coming back into a recession, which means once we do that, then the interest rates will go back down again. And it's going to take a little while for that to happen over the next year or two. That's not something that happens too quickly. Though if we cut government spending quickly, we would probably see that come back even faster. But that's the thing with the two-party system. We probably won't see that happen anytime soon because there's one thing they like to do, and that's spend our hard-earned money. So here's the problems we run into. One, interest rates. That's part of the problem. But when interest rates were still at 3%, we still had an affordable housing issue. So let's talk about that for a minute. Many places across the country, land is an issue. There's not enough of it to build on. And so what we see is a big problem of that, which raises the price. It's a supply and demand issue. So what we see here, like on the West Coast here in the Pacific Northwest, we have tons of buildable land, but the local government controls what they call the urban growth boundaries. And I get that they want to sit there and really keep sprawl from going out and losing farmland and mountains. However, the problem with that is that we now have land prices that could be 10 times what they should be because there's not the buildable land supply. It's a supply and demand thing. We put out more land, the prices go down, and we have more affordable housing. So that's a really big issue right there. If we loosened up some of those land issues, we'd have more supply, we'd have able to build on it, and that would lower the land costs a little bit. Now, here's the next problem we have, and that is how you get through the permitting process. For instance, many cities have these impact fees that add tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars to a house build. Great example. Here in my local major metropolitan area, if I was to pop into Portland, Oregon here, I live outside, happily so. If I was to pop in there and buy a house that had been partially burned down, maybe a bedroom caught fire, it had homeless people living in it, whatever. Three things are going to happen. One, I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to tear this thing down and put a single family residence on it. First thing that happens, they're going to say, oh, that house was built before 1941. So guess what? Here's what we're going to have to do. You are going to hand disassemble that house to reuse the building materials. Problem is, though, that you got lead paint and asbestos and all these things, and not a lot of people are building new homes out of those old building materials. So I get that we're taking it out of the landfills. However, that stuff that's being reused, I think is great. But all the other stuff that we're having to throw away, it's a very expensive way to do it. So that can add $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 onto a project because I could come in there, get all the valuable parts out of it, come in there with an excavator, haul that stuff off, get it hauled out of there, go to the landfill. Most of that stuff's going to break down because it's wood products. And guess what? We can start building. Problem is, we're going to spend, let's say, $20,000 on hand demolition of that. That gets expensive. Then I go down to the city with my new building permit, and I walk down there and say, all right, guys, here we go. This is what I want to build. And they go, okay, cool. Yeah, you're going to have $40,000 of development fees because we need to hook you up to the city water, city sewer. And you say, hey, this house yesterday was hooked up to city water, city sewer. Doesn't matter. That's how they fund the entire department of the building down there. So all the inspectors are funded from those permits. Problem is, each new home buyer has to pay a significant chunk with that. So we've got all those situations like that. And then, of course, we've got all the different things where they require how many trees are going to be planted, that kind of stuff. Heck, if you do a kitchen remodel in the city of Portland and you get over $25,000, last time I checked, it might have gone up a little bit with inflation, but it's been a couple years. But anyway, they'd force you to landscape your lawn and put more trees in, whether you wanted them or not. So here's the problem we run into. All of these other things that don't really relate to the house add to it. Now, there's other things that they could be doing too. If you were to wipe out all those fees, if I was going to be running for president, I'd say, okay, across the country, we're not going to allow single family residents. We're not going to allow more than $10,000 in fees. That way we can make housing more affordable. I think that would be something that would really do better versus giving out $20,000, $25,000. Because you know what happens when somebody gives a grant? We're going to give you $25,000 to all first-time home buyers. People come in, hey, first-time home buyer, I got my $25,000 check. That $600,000 house, if you can find one, now $625,000 because the market just raised it up. Doesn't help anybody out. Might help with a down payment, but it's really not going to move the needle at all because people still can't afford that house. It's the payments that get people in trouble. It's not just that down payment. Down payment's cool, but that's where the issues are going to rise. Now, the other issues that we see out there is zoning. And this can be a touchy one right now because I think pre-manufactured or factory-built housing is a great way to create affordable housing. But the problem is that many cities, counties, townships, even states have created zoning where you can't put those in. And if you've looked, this is not your 1977 manufactured homes I'm talking about out there. This isn't grandma's single wide out in the desert. This is actually a better built house than many of the national spec builders that are building entry-level houses. And I can guarantee you they're built a lot better than some of the ones that we see in some of these states that aren't building great houses right now. So you are seeing stuff that is built. I was in a house here just a few weeks ago that was a manufactured house. It was built in a factory, going to be hauled out to the job site. This drywall was better than another house I was in that had $4.4 million on the price tag because they have the quality control. And the thing that I like is these manufactured homes or pre-built factory-built homes are built inside a building. So there's all the quality control. You don't have moldy lumber. You don't have any of those issues that happen when you're building outside. So I think that is an important piece to take a look at. If I was going to buy a house right now, if I was out shopping for a house and I had one of these big major home builders in a development someplace, the big national ones that come in there and just slap together houses and put them up, and the quality's okay, but it's not great, but it's an entry-level home. 1,000, I can guarantee you that manufactured factory-built home is of higher quality and a better build and is a stronger built house than what's out there. And it's going to look so much better. And the thing is, these days you can sit there and put those into developments now. You can move in a double wide type thing where they put them in, bolt them together, finish them up. First off, you can't tell where any of the seams were inside. It's not like they put the trim pieces up and hide it. And now they're doing them where they have garages built on the front of them. So they come in, set it on the foundation, so it's like a regular built house. And then they stick frame the garage out front, and it looks like every other ranch house in the neighborhood. And you can't tell. And I'm talking 11-foot islands, really cool stuff out there. So these are the things that we really need to open our eyes to help create affordable housing. Now, we're also bringing into our homeless problem into the affordable housing thing, and that's not what I'm talking about. Before we put those people into a permanent housing solution, they need help first. They need mental health. They need drug addiction. Then let's get them so they're in a program where they're learning job skills, and then let's put them into a permanent housing situation. If you take a lot of these street people off that don't want to be anywhere but on the street, of course, there's exceptions to that, and that's not what I'm talking about. But a majority of them like to be out there because they don't have any rules. They're out there camping. They can do drugs when they want. They can act out when they want. They can do whatever they want to do. There's no rules. It's much easier for them to do that, and they can self-medicate at their own desire. A housing development or a low-income housing development, that's one of those things that there's rules to follow. It doesn't go well, and buildings get damaged, people get hurt, and the police are out there all the time. So let's help these people, get them into housing but we got to help them first. And maybe that's our local governments. Maybe that's us as American citizens coming up with some mental health care out there to see if we can help these people out. We have dropped the ball in our cities, making sure that people are getting the mental health care. If we took mental health care as serious as we did health care, we'd be a much better place and we wouldn't have these problems out there. And then sitting there, the other issue that I see with affordable housing is let our cities and states and counties, townships, everybody, letting the government become housing development contractors. They cannot build it cheaper. So we need to let developers come in and do that. Let them do what they're good at. I've seen some affordable housing units where they were $400,000+ for these little 475, 500 square foot little places. And that's insane when you could be building it so much cheaper, and it's going to save a bunch of money and get more people to help. So there's a lot we can do with that. There's a lot of developments we can do out there, but we got to really pay attention to the people first and not just wave around programs that aren't going to help. And it's going to take some great thought leaders to come together and us as citizens to help these people out because they sure need it. And we're going to otherwise have kids. I don't know how kids these days coming out of college, coming out of high school, are going to afford housing when they got to come up with $2,500 just to get into a cheap apartment. That's pretty tough out there. So I don't want to get too preachy on this, guys, but affordable housing is a big thing. And now that we're in the heat of political season, I think we all need to be thinking outside the box a little bit and see if we can get our elected officials around us in our own towns and our own cities to really start to think about what we can do to help people out. Because obviously what we've been doing now isn't working. So let's see if we can all fix it together. We got a great show coming up this weekend on Around the House Northwest as well. My new half-hour TV show on the TV. I want you to check that thing out. You can catch that on Fox 12 Plus, 10 a.m. You can stream it on the Fox 12 app. That's the Portland Fox 12 station. You can catch it there. And then Saturday, usually in the afternoon, that'll end up on YouTube. Whole new format, lots of great stuff coming up. And can't wait to see that. And of course, on the radio show and podcast, we got a great show coming up this weekend. And if you're listening on the podcast, we got a brand new channel. It's carrying us here in, where is that? It's in East. This is going to be fun. East Long Island. So my friends like Skip and Allison Bedell, Catch a Contractor people, now they can catch us on the radio out there instead of having to listen to the podcast, my good friends. All right, everybody, have a great rest of the week. Happy Wednesday. Let's give today, September 11th, a moment of thought for all the people out there that perished and their lives were affected by September 11th. Never forget, guys. This is something that we can't let happen again. And it seems like we're on the track to do it again. So let's see if we can be safe out there. Let's see if we can memorialize those people that lost their lives, the people that were just going to work that day, that were just jumping on an airplane, or the firefighters and first responders that were going up just trying to give people a hand. Have a great rest of the week, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to Around the House. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring that bell so you get notified when we bring you new content.